The cry in the marketplace. The alien marketplace was loud. Voices shouted, machines beeped. Smoke rose from food stalls. Creatures of many shapes and sizes moved through the dusty paths, busy with trade. But in the middle of it all, one sound. Didn't belong. Please. Someone help. My daughter. She's dying, a desperate alien woman cried out, her voice shaking. Her name was Solari. Her long dark robes were torn. Her hands trembled as she held a small, weak body close to her chest. Her daughter, no more than 5 years old, was burning with fever. The little one's eyes were half open, lips dry, and her breathing slow. Just one dose, the medicine, please, I'll give anything, Solari shouted, but no one stopped. No one cared. Some traders looked at her with disgust. She's from the Outlands, one alien muttered. Cursed blood. Not worth a credit, another spat. Let the child die, one less mouth. Solari fell to her knees on the stone ground. She tried to offer her only blanket, then the necklace her mother gave her. Still, no one listened. The crowd moved around her like she was invisible. Dust blew in her face. Her daughter whimpered, barely making a sound now. Tears rolled down Solari's cheeks. Please. Suddenly, footsteps stopped in front of her. She looked up slowly, ready for more rejection. But instead, a human stood there. He was tall, wore an old brown jacket, and had soft eyes filled with concern. His name was Callum, a mechanic from Earth, living far from home. What does she need? He asked gently. Solari blinked. What? Your child, Callum said. Tell me what's wrong. For a moment, Solari didn't speak. She was too shocked. A human, someone she had always been warned about, was offering help. She has fever poisoning, she whispered. The heat won't break. I tried the herbs. Nothing works. She needs Zerthium serum, just 1 vial. Callum frowned. That was a rare medicine, expensive and controlled by the upper sectors, but he didn't look away. Instead, he knelt beside Solari and placed his hand gently on the child's forehead. She's burning up. Solari nodded, eyes wide. I tried everything. They said let her die. I won't. Solari stared at him. Why? She whispered. You don't know us. You're human. Callum gave a sad smile. No one helped my sister when she was sick. I'll never forget that feeling. He stood up and looked around the marketplace. His voice changed, strong, focused. I'll get the medicine. You stay here. But Solari clutched his leg. No, they'll arrest you. Humans aren't allowed in the clinic. I'm not leaving her like this, Callum said. Trust me. He turned and walked away fast, disappearing into the maze of stalls. Solari sat there, heart racing. Could she trust him? What if he never came back? Minutes felt like hours. The sun rose higher. Her daughter's skin was getting colder. She held her tighter. Then, more footsteps. She looked up. Callum was back. His jacket was torn, a cut bleeding. On his arm, but in his hand was a small silver vial. He knelt beside Solari again and opened the vial quickly. I stole it, he whispered. There was no time, I had to run. Solari's eyes widened. They'll come for you. Not yet. He lifted the child's arm carefully and injected the serum. The clear liquid entered her veins, and Solari held her breath. Nothing. For 1 minute, nothing. Then, her daughter gasped, her chest rose, her eyes blinked open, weak but alive. Solari let out a cry of relief and hugged her tightly. You're here, you're here. Callum smiled. She's not out of danger yet, but she's fighting. Solari turned to him. You saved her. He nodded slowly. I'll help however I can. But behind them, in the shadows of the marketplace, 2 alien guards had noticed the vial. One leaned to the other and whispered, Human interference. That's a stolen dose. The chase was not over. But for now, a child lived, and an alien mother, forgotten by all, had found hope in the hands of a human. Solari's daughter was breathing again, but her body was still weak. Too weak. The fever had not gone fully, and the heat under her skin was like a slow fire. Her little fingers trembled. Her lips were still dry. The serum had worked. But only just. Callum's hands were shaking too, not from fear but from pain. He had been cut during his escape. The wound on his arm dripped slowly through his torn sleeve and sweat ran down his forehead. Solari looked at him with new eyes. "You risked your life. For her," she whispered. Callum only nodded, keeping his voice low. "She needs rest and shelter. It's not safe here." A sudden loud shout came from behind them. "There! That's him! The human thief! Guards!" Too tall, alien soldiers ran toward them, holding long electric staffs that crackled with blue light. Their armor reflected the sun and their sharp boots crushed the stones beneath them. Solari panicked. "Run!" But Callum didn't run alone. He lifted the child carefully into his arms. She was light, almost weightless, like a fragile bird. "Come, with me," he told Solari, and then he ran, fast but careful not to jolt the child too much. They dashed into the tight maze of the lower marketplace, where thick smoke from cook fires made it hard to see. Callum turned corners quickly, slipping between crates and under hanging wires. Solari followed, breathing hard, her heart racing. "They're still behind us," she gasped. "I know a way," Callum said. "Hold on." He ran to the back of an old storage shed and kicked the wall twice. A hidden panel fell open with a clunk. "A secret path?" Solari asked. "Smuggler's route," he said. "Hurry." They climbed through. Inside it was dark and narrow. Pipes lined the walls. Callum moved with memory, leading them through twisting tunnels and silent shadows. They emerged an hour later into an old part of the city, forgotten, broken, quiet. Here, the buildings leaned like tired old men, and the air was cooler. No guards patrolled these ruins. Callum brought them into a small metal hut built into a hillside. He unlocked the rusty door, then placed the child gently on a low bed made of cloth and foam. Solari knelt beside her daughter. Her fingers touched the child's face again and again, feeling the slow, soft breaths. She's alive, still alive. Callum sat down beside the wall, finally letting out a tired sigh. Barely. That dose will hold her for a day or two. No more. Solari turned sharply. What do you mean? She needs another dose. The infection is deep. We need a full course, 3 vials total. I could only get 1. Solari's eyes filled with fear. But the guards saw you. They'll arrest you if you go back. I know, Callum said. Then you can't go, he looked at her, his voice calm. If I don't, she dies. The words hit her like a stone. Solari lowered her head. Her hands gripped the bed, knuckles white. I've never begged anyone. I was once from a proud people. But I will beg you now. Please save her. Callum didn't answer right away. He stood, walked to a small chest in the corner and pulled out a dusty scanner. I'll try something else, he said. This is old Earth tech. I'll run a scan. Maybe we can find a replacement compound. Something close enough to the serum. Solari watched him work. His hands moved fast, skilled. He didn't ask for thanks. He didn't ask for payment. He just worked, like someone who had lost too many already. After 10 minutes, the scanner beeped. Callum looked at the screen and frowned. No replacement, he said. Nothing close. It has to be the original Zerthium. Solari swallowed hard. Then we're out of time. Callum stood slowly. Not yet. Solari grabbed his hand. They'll hurt you. They might, he said softly. But your daughter is innocent. She deserves to live. A moment of silence passed between them. Solari whispered, Why are you doing this? Callum looked down at the little girl. Her eyes fluttered open for just a second. When my sister was sick, he said, no one helped us. She died in my arms. I was 12. I promised myself, if I ever got the chance, I'd never let someone else suffer the way we did. Solari felt her heart break again, but not from pain, from something else, something she thought she'd lost long ago. Hope. "You will come back?" she asked. Callum gave her a tired smile. "Count on it." And before the stars had fully risen, the human man had disappeared into the night, once again risking his life for a child who was not his, but had already become part of his soul. Night had settled over the city, and its lights flickered like distant stars through the smoke of machines and ash. Callum moved through the shadows like a ghost, silent, swift, and unseen. His heart beat hard in his chest, not from fear, but from the weight of a promise, a little girl's life and a mother's desperate hope. The clinic wasn't just off limits. It was a fortress. It stood tall in the inner city, guarded by scanners, steel gates, and alien soldiers who didn't ask questions. They just shot. The building itself was white and glowing, too clean for a world so broken. It was where the rich aliens went when their pets sneezed. But poor children died in the slums with no medicine. Callum crouched behind a supply vehicle as a patrol passed. His mind raced. He had been here once before, long ago, when he worked as a fixer. He remembered the back-loading tunnel, used at night to throw out expired meds. The irony still burned him. They dumped what others died begging for. He moved fast, climbing the back wall using the pipes and small vents. His hands burned with the effort. The cut on his arm reopened, bleeding again. Still, he pushed forward. At last, he slipped through a service vent and dropped quietly inside the clinic. The hallway was silver and blue, lined with storage doors. Cameras watched everything. He took a deep breath and reached into his coat. From his inner pocket, he pulled out a small, round device, one of the last tools he had from Earth. He tapped it once. The screen glowed red. "Cameras down," he whispered. The lights blinked and the cameras buzzed, then froze. Callum darted forward. He passed storage room after storage room until he reached the restricted medicine vault. Its door was thick, fingerprint access only. But Callum wasn't here to play fair. From his belt, he took a small tool and placed it on the scanner. It sparked. A second later, the lock gave a soft beep, and the door hissed open. Inside were shelves lined with boxes and vials, each worth more than a poor man's life. Callum scanned quickly. His eyes landed on a silver box labeled Zerthium Antitoxin, Grade A, for advanced fever poisoning. He grabbed it, but as he turned, something clicked behind him. He froze. A guard stood at the door, tall, lizard-like, with golden eyes. His weapon hummed as he stepped in slowly. "You're not authorized," the guard growled. "Drop the vial." Callum didn't move. His mind worked fast. He could lie. He could beg. But it wouldn't help. He saw it in the guard's eyes. This alien didn't care about reasons, only rules. So Callum did the only thing he could. He threw the vial into the air. As the guard's eyes followed it for a split second, Callum rushed forward, slammed the shelf, and knocked it over. Glass shattered. Boxes flew. The guard fired, but missed. Callum rolled to the floor, grabbed the vial from the ground, and sprinted out the door. Alarms blared. Human thief in the vault. Red lights flashed. Footsteps echoed everywhere. He ran down the halls, turning left, then right, diving into the waste chute. It was a slide of filth and old metal, but it led outside. He landed hard on a pile of trash behind the clinic. His side burned and his breath was heavy. But the vial was safe in his hand. He didn't stop to rest. He disappeared into the night. Back in the ruined hut, Solari sat by her daughter's side. The child's skin had gone pale again. Her breath was thin, shallow. Time was running out. Solari sang an old song, the kind sung to warriors before battle. Though her voice cracked with fear, she didn't expect him to return. She wanted to believe, but too many had lied before. Her people had once been noble, but now no one helped them, not even their own. Then, the door burst open. Callum stumbled in, bleeding, limping, but alive. "I got it," he said, holding out the vial like it was treasure. Solari gasped. You're hurt. No time, he said. Help me. Together they gave the second dose to the girl. Her body twitched, her breath caught. Then, she fell still. Silence. Solari wept silently. But then the child took a deep, full breath and her color began to return. Her body relaxed. She wasn't dying anymore. Callum sat back, finally letting himself fall to the floor. Solari looked at him, eyes wide. You did it. He didn't smile. One more dose. In 3 days. She nodded slowly. Then we stay hidden. Until then. Callum whispered. They'll come for me now. Solari looked at her child, now sleeping peacefully, and then back at the human who had risked everything. If they come, she said, standing up and reaching for an old knife, they'll have to go through me. For the first time in days, silence filled the small hut. Solari sat beside her daughter, stroking the child's hair with trembling fingers. The fever was breaking, slowly. Sweat rolled down the girl's forehead, but her breathing was calm now, steady like a sleeping moon creature. Her eyes stayed closed, but her small hands no longer twitched. Her skin no longer burned like fire. Solari exhaled a shaky breath. She looked to Callum, the human who had brought them hope. He was lying in the corner, half-conscious, his shirt soaked with blood. The cut on his arm was deeper than she thought. The run, the fight, the escape, he had pushed his body too far. Solari moved quickly. She found a jar of old herbs in the corner, crushed the dried leaves with a rock, then boiled water using a solar pot. She dipped a cloth in the mixture and pressed it to Callum's wound. He winced but didn't wake. You saved my child, she whispered. Now let me save you. She worked through the night. She used her hands to clean the wound, ignoring the burning sting on her skin. She tied strips of cloth from her own robes to stop the bleeding. She kept her voice low, whispering words in her native tongue, words of strength, words once spoken by healers long forgotten. Morning light crept in through the broken metal window. Callum stirred. His eyes fluttered open. You're still here? He croaked. Solari gave a small smile. I said I would be. He looked toward the child. And her? She breathes. Because of you. Callum tried to sit up but groaned. Solari pushed him gently back down. No. Rest. You've done enough. He closed his eyes but whispered, Not yet. One more dose. Solari nodded. I'll find a way. This time, I'll go. But Callum shook his head weakly. Too dangerous. They're hunting now. Guards everywhere. She looked at him carefully. They don't look for me. Just you. I know the back routes. I can sneak into the slums, ask traders. Maybe someone has extra medicine. Callum didn't argue. He knew she was right, but he hated the idea of her going alone. Solari stood, wrapped her robe tightly and looked down at him. You rest. You saved her life twice. Let me try once. Then she was gone. The hours passed slowly. Callum stayed in the hut, half asleep, listening to the child's quiet breathing. He looked around the tiny space, scrap metal, burnt wires, cracked glass. It wasn't a home, but somehow it was the safest place he'd ever felt. When the sun began to set, the door creaked open. Solari stepped inside, her face tight with emotion. In her hands was nothing. Callum sat up, his heart dropping. No one. She shook her head. Not even one dose. Traders won't help. Some laughed. Some said let her die. A few asked for more credits than we'll ever have. She sank to the floor, her shoulders shaking. I tried, I begged, and they still turned away. Callum looked at her, eyes steady. You did what you could. Solari looked at her daughter, who still rested, but her cheeks were starting to flush again. The fever hadn't returned, not yet, but it would. Without the third dose, the sickness would come back stronger. I can't lose her, she whispered. Callum's fists tightened. He stood slowly, limping to the corner where he kept his tools. He pulled out a small silver box, old, dented, but sealed tight. "What is that?" Solari asked. "My emergency kit," Callum said. "When I left Earth, my brother gave this to me, told me to never open it unless I had no other choice." He opened it. Inside was a single vial. Not Zerthium, but Earth-made. An old universal antibiotic used in wars. "It's not perfect," he said, "but it saved lives in worse conditions." Solari stared at it. "Will it work?" "I don't know, but it's all we've got." She looked at him, her voice quiet but strong. "Then we try." Callum prepared the injection. He moved carefully, watching the child's body with every step. He pushed the medicine into her arm, and then they waited. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Her breathing stayed calm. Her skin cooled. Her eyes didn't open, but her small hand reached out and gently held her mother's finger. Solari gasped. She moved." Callum smiled faintly, exhausted. "It worked," he whispered. "Maybe not the way we planned, but it worked." Solari leaned over and pressed her forehead to her daughter's. She whispered a prayer, not to any god but to the stars above and to the human beside her. "You gave her a chance," she said softly, "and I will never forget it." But outside, in the alley near the hill, alien boots crunched softly over gravel. A tracker blinked red. A scanner beeped. They had found the hut. Trouble was coming, but inside, for a moment longer, there was only peace. The sun had barely touched the edge of the sky when Solari heard the sound, soft at first like a hummingbird's cry, then heavier, louder, metal against stone, boots, more than one pair. Her heart sank. She moved quietly to the edge of the hut, pulling back the hanging cloth from the broken window. Down the slope just beyond the old wall, 3 figures in armor stood still. One of them held a scanner. It blinked red, aimed directly at their shelter. She turned and whispered, "Callum, wake up." He was already sitting up, eyes alert. He hadn't slept much. "They've found us," she said. Callum stood, grimacing from the pain in his side. "We need to leave now." Solari nodded, grabbing the bag she had packed the night before. Extra wraps, dried food, water, and a worn cloth to wrap her daughter in. The child still slept, but her breathing was strong, her face calm. Solari kissed her forehead and carefully lifted her into her arms. The two stepped outside into the cool morning air. They didn't run. Not yet. Running would draw attention. Instead, they moved like shadows, slipping between the broken walls and leaning metal, structures of the forgotten quarter. Smoke from distant fires gave them cover. But the guards were not fools. From behind them came a sharp voice. "Stop, human, surrender." Callum turned once, saw the energy rifles raised, and pulled Solari into a narrow path. "Left!" he shouted. They ran now, fast and silent, ducking low, turning into the ruins where only rats lived. Solari's legs were shaking, but she didn't stop. Her daughter's warmth against her chest was the only thing keeping her moving. They reached the old sewer access point, Callum's backup route. He pried open the rusted grate and motioned for Solari to go first. She hesitated. "This leads where?" "A hidden market, underground, smugglers, but safe for now." Solari nodded and crawled inside, cradling the child tightly. Callum followed, pulling the grate closed behind them. Darkness swallowed them whole. Inside the tunnels, the air was thick and damp. Small lights blinked along the walls and wires hung low. Strange voices echoed in the distance. Dealers, runaways, outlaws. This was the kind of place people avoided. But for Callum, it was familiar. They moved slowly, following the old path he had once used to transport illegal tools and salvaged tech. A smuggler named Rinko, an old alien with a glass eye and too many scars, stood near a table stacked with crates. He raised an eyebrow. "You look like hell, Callum." "I need help," Callum said. "You always do." Rinko smirked. Callum pointed to Solari. "This is Solari. Her daughter's sick. I need transport. Off-world. Rinko whistled. That's not cheap. Callum stepped forward. I have no money, but I have something better. He reached into his bag and pulled out the small Earth-made medical kit, the one he used to save the child. Rinko stared. You still have that thing? Not anymore. That was the last dose. But someone might pay to study it, Rinko muttered, rubbing his chin. Callum didn't wait. Take it. Just get them, to safety. Rinko looked at the woman and child, then back to Callum. What about you? I'll draw the guards away. Solari stepped forward, eyes wide. No, we all go. They're hunting me, Callum said. Not you. If I go with you, you'll all be targets. But you saved us, Solari said. I'm a human, that's all they see. But I'd rather be hunted than see your child hurt again. There was a long pause. Solari's voice cracked. Where will you go? Callum smiled faintly. Where I always go. The dark corners. Rinko stepped in. I'll get them off-world, quietly. But you better vanish, Callum. He nodded. That's the plan. Solari reached out and grabbed Callum's hand. She didn't say anything, just held it. He squeezed gently. Take care of her. Then he turned and disappeared into the tunnel before she could stop him. Above ground, soldiers searched the ruins. One found the old hut. It was empty, cold, but the scanner still blinked. He was here, the captain growled. Spread out, he won't get far. But Callum was already gone. He had slipped into the smoke and the shadows, just another unwanted ghost in a city full of silence. Back in Rinko's ship, Solari sat by the window, holding her daughter close. The stars outside looked endless. The engine hummed as they rose above the planet's surface. She closed her eyes, remembering the man who had come from nowhere, risked everything, and asked for nothing. And though they were flying far, far away, her heart stayed with him. The stars drifted quietly outside the window as Rinko's old smuggler ship hummed through deep space. Inside, the lights flickered from time to time, and wires hung low from the ceiling. It wasn't built for comfort, but, to Solari, it felt like the safest place she had known in years. Her daughter Lena lay asleep in her lap, her small body now full of color and calm breath. The final fever had passed. The medicine Callum gave her, it had worked. The girl no longer shook in her arms like a dying leaf. Instead, she now curled softly against her mother's chest like a warm kitten. But Solari's heart was not calm. It ached. With grief, with guilt, and with memory. Rinko entered the small cabin, holding 2 metal cups filled with something warm. He handed one to Solari and sat on a crate across from her. She's healing fast, he said, glancing at Lena. Solari nodded. Faster than she should. Rinko raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Solari was quiet for a long time. Then she said softly, I haven't told the truth. Not all of it. Rinko tilted his head. Go on. Solari took a shaky breath. Lena's not just any child. She's royal-blooded. Her father was the High Lord of the East Wing of Theraxis. Rinko sat upright. Wait, the last Theraxian prince? The one they said died in the rebellion? Solari nodded slowly. He didn't die, not at first. He was captured. And I was his wife. In secret. Rinko stared at her in disbelief. When the Empire fell, I escaped with Lena, she said. She was only a baby. They didn't want her alive. She's a threat to the ones in power now. If anyone finds out who she is, they'll hunt her. Rinko finished grimly. And probably kill you both. Solari looked down at her daughter. That's why I hid. That's why I never told anyone. Even when she got sick. I thought about letting her die. Just to keep her safe. Isn't that strange? No, Rinko said quietly. That's the fear of a mother. Not strange. Just heavy. Solari brushed a strand of silver hair from Lena's forehead. She's strong. She heals too quickly. She sees things I don't. Her blood is not just royal. It's ancient. Rinko rubbed his face, letting out a breath. And the human? Callum. He never knew. She shook her head. I didn't tell him. How could I? He saved us without knowing who we were. He saw only a mother and child. Rinko leaned back, thinking. He wouldn't have cared. You know that, right? I know, Solari whispered. That's what makes it harder. For a moment, silence filled the ship again. Only the hum of the engine and Lena's soft breath remained. Then Rinko said, We'll land soon. A moon called Felrin 5. Mixed. Species. No empire rule. You'll be safe there, if you stay quiet. Solari nodded. Thank you. You'll need a new name, he added. I already picked one, she replied. Call me Sarah, and her, Leah. Rinko smiled faintly. You're good at hiding. I've had years of practice. He stood to leave, but paused. One more thing, he said. What are you going to tell her when she asks who she is? Solari didn't answer right away. She looked at her sleeping daughter and gently pulled the thin blanket over her shoulder. When she's ready, she said, I'll tell her the truth, that her father was a brave man, that her blood carries a history they tried to erase. But more than that, I'll tell her about a human named Callum, a man who didn't care about bloodlines, or war or power. I'll tell her, she said softly, that he was the reason she lived. Later that night, as the stars shifted outside the small porthole, Solari sat alone by the window, staring out into the black sea of space. Her daughter now slept safely in a new bed, under a new name. But her mind stayed with Callum. She didn't know where he was, or if he was still running, or if he was hurt, or worse. But she knew this. He had changed everything. He had stepped into her broken life, asked for nothing, and gave everything. And somewhere in the quiet corners of the galaxy, she believed, he was still watching the stars too, thinking of the little girl who once lay dying in his arms. The moon called Felrin 5 was nothing like the world Solari had fled. It had no towers, no screaming sirens, no patrol ships flying overhead. The air was dry but clean, filled with the scent of sweet dust and purple grasses that grew like low blankets across the ground. Twin suns crossed the sky during the day, but the nights were covered with stars so bright, Solari sometimes forgot to breathe when looking up. They had settled on the edge of a peaceful valley where creatures of all kinds lived, without fear. No empire ruled here. No bloodlines mattered. You were not judged by what you were born into, but by what you did with your hands, your heart, and your word. Solari, now Sarah, built a life with quiet hands and steady work. She helped grow food in the village gardens. She sewed clothes for others, trading for credits and kindness. Most importantly, she raised her daughter Leah with care. Leah grew stronger with each passing cycle. Her strange fever never returned, and the glow in her eyes, once feared, now shone with curiosity instead of sickness. She was gentle yet sharp-minded. She asked questions about the stars, about other worlds, about her father, and the human who saved her. Sarah always answered with honesty, but not with everything. Not yet. She knew Leah would need to grow before she could carry the truth. One evening, years after they arrived, Leah sat on the hillside, watching the stars, legs crossed, sketching patterns in the dirt with a stick. Her dark curls bounced as the wind moved, and her bright eyes followed the dance of falling stardust above. Sarah walked over and sat beside her. You always look up, Sarah said, brushing her daughter's hair back. I feel like someone's up there, Leah said quietly. Someone I should remember. Sarah's heart tightened. You don't remember much, do you? She asked. Just flashes, Leah whispered. A warm voice, a strong hand, a man with sad eyes who held me when I was burning. Sarah nodded. That man was named Callum. Was he my father? Sarah smiled gently. No, but he was something just as important. Leah looked at her. What was he? Sarah took a deep breath and pointed to the brightest star in the sky. That, she said, is called the Wanderer's Star. It's always moving, always watching, never staying in one place. That's who Callum was. He didn't belong anywhere, but when we needed him most, he appeared like light in darkness. She paused. He gave you your life back. Leah was quiet for a while. Is he still out there? She asked softly. Sarah didn't know the answer. No message had come. No word. Rinko had tried to track him once, but Callum had vanished like smoke. Still, she said, I believe he is. Leah leaned against her mother's side. Then one day I'll find him and say thank you. Elsewhere, far across the stars, a ship moved quietly through asteroid fields and cold voids. Inside, a man in a worn jacket with fading patches adjusted a control panel. His hair was longer now, a bit grayer, but his eyes still held the same light. Callum had become a myth in many parts of the galaxy. The ghost mechanic, some called him. Others spoke of a human who fixed what empires broke, then vanished before his name could be written down, but he remembered them. Every night, he remembered a child's burning skin, a mother's desperate voice, a moment where he could have walked away, but didn't. He stared at a small drawing pinned to his cockpit wall, a stick-figure child holding hands with a tall man. It had been drawn on old cloth before he left the hut. She had handed it to him before he disappeared. He never let it go. Back on Felrin 5, life continued. Leah was now old enough to climb trees, race across the valley, and read star maps on her own. Sarah had begun to tell her more of the hidden bloodline, of her real name, and of what the galaxy might demand of her one day. But Leah only smiled and said, I'll be ready, Mama. I have your strength and his kindness. Sarah kissed her forehead. That's all you'll ever need. That night, after Sarah had fallen asleep, Leah stood outside under the stars once more. A shooting star passed across the sky, leaving a silver trail. She whispered into the air, Wherever you are, Callum, thank you. I'm still here. I'm still shining. And somewhere, light years away, a human man in a quiet ship looked up at the same sky and smiled.